Verstappen versus Norris, take 2 or 3 potentially from this year. And this is the next lap. So Sainz is still not broken clear of the Red Bull. Norris now has a chance to attack, and we're heading up towards turn 4. Lando goes for it on the outside. He gets marginally ahead, as he did in Austin, on the outside line. Now, Max knows what he needs to do because he did it in Austin, release the brakes, get ahead to the apex. But this time so does Lando, and he's super committed to the apex this time, and he's still ahead as they get to this apex point. And you can see how close Max is to the back of the Ferrari. If Carlos Sainz was not here, Max would release the brakes a lot more, as he did in Austin. He'd probably get his nose to there, get ahead at the apex and force Lando off, potentially forcing himself off. But he cannot do that on this occasion. So he's stuck in behind the Ferrari, which means that Lando is ahead, or at least neck and neck, as they get to the apex point, which is the crucial metric now that the stewards are looking at. And as they get towards the exit, we can see that once again, there is nowhere for Lando to go. He clearly cannot stay on the track here because Max is just forcing him off. And he goes off, cutting over the grass, lets Sainz back through, and in the meantime, holds the place over Verstappen that he thought he had earned on the entry. And then we get to the second part straight away. And this one is a bonkers move from Verstappen. And they were both penalised, turn 4 and turn 7. But this one there is no defence for, as Max comes from a good way back into a corner that's not a big break at the best of times, sends it in at the inside. Doesn't matter where he is at the apex because he's never making it on the corner on the exit. They're both miles wide. And through comes Charles Leclerc to take second place. Verstappen then is hit with 20 seconds worth of penalties. And it's difficult to really argue with both because the letter of the law, he has forced Norris off. And the second one, he's clearly overtaken way off the track, as well as just forcing Norris off in what was a really crazy attempt from Verstappen. So let's have a look on board with Max, first of all. And we can see he's in the real tracks of Sainz. He knows where Norris is. He's having a good look at the McLaren, but there's just nothing he can do at this point. Once again, he gets really close to the back of the Ferrari, but if he releases the brakes, he's just going to smack into the back of the race leader. So he has to give Norris the advantage at the apex, but then now he's getting on the gas slightly, which just still forces Lando off wide on the outside, and it forces Max's line right to the outside as well. So he's not trying to give Lando any space, even though he's been beaten to the apex. And Lando is forced off wide. So that part of the incident has happened, and clearly this is a forcing off the road issue. So that's one part, and now we're back into the wheel tracks of Norris. And this one is just a nonsense pass from Verstappen. From this point, you are never going to make a clean pass on any competitive Formula One driver. I don't think Max would make a move on a Sauber of Zhou at this corner from this position because you're never going to be able to brake this late and commit to that inside line with this shorter braking zone and from this far back. So it's really what could be a cynical pass. It's certainly not sporting from Verstappen as he just sends it in with probably the sheer knowledge that he's never going to hold it on, but he just wants to take the place regardless. And so a penalty for that one is absolutely quite right, really. And on board with Lando, you can see how Lando's changed since the last week in Austin because he commits so much harder now to the apex here as we see him coming in, just giving it much more on the entry. And this is the way that the rules are written now to get ahead at the apex. Norris knows it, and he is just slightly ahead at the apex point. Now, Christian Horner said after the race to the media, he had the telemetry printed out of Lando's corner saying that he braked so late he was never going to make it. I actually think Norris can make the corner here. And if you look at his trajectory, it looks like he is going to actually keep at least 2 wheels on the track as he's coming through here from the video evidence. But there's actually a little bit of contact as he's forced off fully and has to take to the grass and takes the place from Verstappen by doing so. And then we see the very next corner. We come through turn 6 and he's under attack once again from Max, who cannot afford to let him go. And this one is actually quite well judged from Norris to not crash into Max. It's taking a lot of skill at this point to actually, for this corner, you've not got a lot of runoff. You're now onto the dusty apron coming up very soon off the line. And they're very, very close to a wipeout. And Norris avoids it. Verstappen forces him off, takes the place back, and Leclerc comes through. So in the big picture here, this is not fair driving from Verstappen. Off the back of Austin, there are 2 10-second penalties. Now, the first one is more defensible from Verstappen They're racing to the apex. It's tight. You need to look with a sort of slow-mo to see who's definitely ahead at the apex, and it's more similar to the one in Austin. The fact that Norris actually gains the place by going off the road could mean that 10 seconds is possibly harsh. Maybe it could be 5 seconds. But in the rules, there's nothing about who keeps the place after the corner. It's about who forces who off the track or does an overtaking move off the track. But in this case, Norris was ahead at the apex point, so he was entitled to space at the corner. The second move, though, to me, is just indefensible, really. It could be a cynical pass, it's not sporting, and it's just Max, at any cost, trying to get himself ahead of Lando. So I think 10 seconds is the very least that he should be punished for that second pass. All in all, 20-second penalty it changed the course of the race, this one, generally. It forced Max into a very different race, but he could have also given the place up to Lando after overtaking him off the track, which was a clear foul, but he didn't want to because he's all about sabotaging his championship rival's race right now. And this did really cost Norris a chance to win when you look at how the race panned out. And I think there's a question of just general sportsmanship and racing ethics at this point with Verstappen. This was a clear foul, and it's just not how we want to see a title battle being played out, with constant driving off the road, penalties being dished out. Last week, it was Norris who got the penalty. Verstappen, I think, got away with it, and most of the other drivers thought that he could have been penalised for that one as well. And this week, 2 fouls in 2 corners. We just want to see the title rivals playing it out fairly, and hopefully for the final 4 races of the season we get that, because seeing the races really changed by what is unfair driving is not how Formula One should be. And if every driver raced like Max Verstappen, this would be chaos.
Well, I mean, at the end of the day, if you agree with it or not, it doesn't matter because the penalties are given. So that's also honestly not my biggest problem of the race. My biggest problem was that we just had no pace. Just struggling a lot on the tires. Couldn't really attack, and I couldn't follow Ferrari and McLaren.
I drove a good race, and I'm happy with the points we got. Ferrari are catching, but I did the best I could.